welcome Sarah and Jordan. We are so happy you're here today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. So today we're going to be diving into Jordan's story and how God has been performing miracles since the day that she was born. So Sarah, if you could start off with kind of introducing your family and your family dynamic.
Sure. So I'm Sarah, mom and wife, and my husband is Jojo Moore. He is, awesome dad, husband. Then we have Jordan. She's 17. We have our son, Joseph Jr., who everyone knows as Deuce. He's 13, and then Jayla, who is 12.
Awesome. So Jordan, you are the oldest, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so Sarah, could you talk about the day that you found out you were pregnant with Jordan and kind of that process?
When I got pregnant with Jordan, I was single. Jojo is not her biological father. Surprising to find out as a single person who does not have a boyfriend that I was pregnant with Jordan. But I wasn't nervous about it or scared. I was 28 years old. I wasn't young. I had a good job, had my own house. I had cars, so I wasn't like, oh no, what am I going to do? But it also wasn't something that I planned for sure. So some fear, some excitement, but not a plan, that's for sure.
So throughout that pregnancy, were there any health concerns for Jordan?
None at all. I went to every appointment. They said everything was great. Wonderful. I actually was 41 weeks, and they're like, oh, we have to induce you, but it's going to be wonderful, and you're going to come home with a little baby girl. And I was like, okay, that's great. Sounds good.
So if we jump to the day that Jordan was born, can you talk about that day?
Yes. So I had both of my parents with me. They were instrumental through my whole pregnancy, and we went in so excited in the morning and like, okay, we're going to have a baby. And after about 18 hours, I had already had an epidural. Things weren't progressing, and all of a sudden, like, things went nuts. They're like, her heart rate is dropping. We have to get her out. I remember, like, being, like, literally run down the hallway and needed an emergency C-section. And all of that just kind of, like, it was a blur. And I remember when they took her out, I remember a doctor saying, come on, cry, because she was completely silent. So that was probably like the hardest part. And they showed her to me really quick, like, here's your baby, we've got to take her. So I'm in recovery, and they bring her over in a little like glass box, basically, because they're going to airlift her to Children's. And they said she's got severe congestive heart failure, that she has to go right now. And they didn't know why, but they had to take her. I got a call that night that they couldn't figure out what was wrong, and they were going to take some pictures of her so that I would have pictures at least to remember her by, but that there was no way that she would make it through that night. So they would hold those pictures for me until, I was able to get them. So that was like the day of.
Where was your relationship with God at this point?
It was not there. So before I got pregnant with her, and even during my pregnancy, I didn't go to church. I didn't read the Bible. I didn't study it. And with that being in your background, I just completely went away from it. And I remember that night sticks out so clearly in my mind because when they called and said she wasn't going to make it, sorry. I literally, wailed is the only word I can use. Like, God, please let me keep her, Please let me be able to take her home. And I just remember, without having anyone else, you just go back to God. And it was such a, powerful moment that I can remember it so very clearly. I just was screaming to God, please let me have her. Don't don't take her. And that next morning, when she made it through the night, I remember talking to my dad, and I'm like, we have to get her baptized. Like, that became the first priority. And so it was like, go from nothing, right? No church, no God, no prayer, no Bible, to leaning on him completely in this journey. So it was almost like instant that night. And after that, it was like, I was back to knowing that he was who I could count on. He was who I could talk to, who I could rely on. And it was a very lonely feeling, because again, it was just me. Definitely had my parents for sure, but really, really came back to faith and God and knowing that he was in control of this situation.
Can you talk about what Jordan's life continued to look like after birth?
Yeah, so the first week especially was really, really rough. That next morning when I got a call that she was still with us, I told my doctors, either you can unhook me from this stuff, or I'm going to unhook myself, because I'm going to go sit with my daughter. So I went right over and sat at Children's with her, and we all just held her, because we didn't know how long we were going to have, and they had no diagnosis. They said she's in heart failure, but her heart is great. It's just beating really, really fast, and we can't figure out why. And a student came in actually at Children's, and her little body had so many tubes and wires and everything else that the student took the stethoscope and stuck it on her head, and then was like, I don't think her head is supposed to sound like that. And the doctor came over, listened, and as quick as they took her when she was born, they took her right then. And that's when they figured out that the problem was not her heart, the problem was in her brain. And that's when they diagnosed her with her vein of Galen brain malformation. So it wasn't until day 4 or 5 that we actually had a diagnosis. So that's step one. And then what do you do as a parent, right? You Google everything. So I'm like, okay, let me look this up. So then what does it say? If the child presents at birth with heart failure, this is fatal. There was not like could be, might be, it is fatal. So now you go from being like, great, we have a diagnosis, to, okay, it's a diagnosis that's fatal. So then it's again that range of emotion, and you're back to prayer of like, if anyone can keep her alive, you can, so we go back to that. God's hand is in this so many different ways, because her condition is only 1 in every 3 million newborns has it. And a doctor, who is still her doctor, had just transferred to Freighter from Duke University, and he's one of very few in the country that know how to do the surgery that she needed. So you're talking over 17 years ago, right? Now there's more that can do it, but it was God putting her exactly where she needed to be. That was another time where you're like, okay, great, we have a chance. But going into surgery, they said there's only a 10% chance she's gonna live. So when you say goodbye, you should say your goodbyes, because you probably won't see her. And if she lives, there's only a 10% chance that she won't have major mental defects or disabilities. And I said, I don't care, about any of that. Just, God, please keep her with us. And that's been our prayer since the very beginning with her. Just let us keep her. And after 9 hours in surgery, he came out smiling, her surgeon did, and he said, she did great. Being that she was a tiny baby, you can't, ask her questions or see how she's doing. It was kind of a waiting game. And she did wonderfully, and we did this over and over again. For the 6 months that she stayed in the hospital, she would have another brain surgery. Every surgery, her chances got better, but it's always that, relying on God, asking him, his plan, and so that's where her beginning, how life began for her.
So how many surgeries has Jordan had?
I've had 11 now.
11 brain surgeries.
Yes. And then there have been others, but
Yeah.
11 brain surgeries.
How has your faith in Jesus helped you pull through some of those moments?
I remember one surgery, either this last one or like the one before. It was the night before, and I just started like crying, getting ready for bed. As I tried to go to sleep, I tried to calm myself down by saying, like, you've done this before, like it's nothing new, yes, it's very scary, but you're used to it. And besides, if something different happens this time, you're gonna be in a much better place than here on Earth, better than you can imagine. So like, obviously, nobody wants to die, right? But just knowing that you would have a place to go to if you did, that really helped. Just like somebody who loves you, just always watching over you.
Was there a Bible verse that you really liked that you carry with you through those times?
I don't think it's any particular verse, no. I just like keeping in my mind that, no matter what happens, it's like God knows what's happening. Like, nothing in his mind is random, and whatever happens is what's supposed to happen because he's in charge.
Have you, and I know the answer to this question, but have you let this diagnosis stop you from doing anything that you wanted to?
No, I haven't. We didn't figure out about my vision or my nonverbal learning disorder until later. It wasn't like, hey, you'll get through this. It was like, oh, this is how it is for everybody, and if they figured out how to get through these challenges, then I will too. So, not the same thing, but even at a young age, I figured out just keep trying.
What is it like as a mother seeing her thrive today versus where you were at when she was born?
It's so amazing. Like, we watch her just overcome obstacle after obstacle, and with such a positive attitude. Like, when this is Jordan all the time. She's always happy, even if days are rough. She's like, well, it's fine because we figured it out. We got through it, right?
Yeah.
With surgery, she's always so upbeat, and even trying to help us, right? Me and Dad have probably a harder time than you do when we go to surgery. So it's amazing, and it's really, back when we had her, you wonder like, why us or why me? And then fast forward a few years, and Jordan saved my life like way more than I've ever impacted or saved hers. So it's like, she brought me back to church and to God and to faith. So seeing her do all of these things is just amazing. It's great. And we always say, like, our saying is, for everything God decides, right?
Yes.
So it's all him, and we just love it. We're so proud of her.
What is it like hearing your mom say that?
She tells me that she's proud of me all the time, but just like knowing that I saved her life is pretty cool, because I did not know that.
It's a pretty good compliment, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
So what does Jordan's future look like today?
Well, she will be going to Montana State University in the fall, so you're excited about that.
Yes.
Yeah, I wish she was closer, but I am also excited for her. It's just yet one more thing, right, that we never imagined she'd be doing. You amaze us all the time with all of the stuff that you accomplish. There are difficult things. She won't drive. She's got a vision issue where she's blind on, one half of her vision she can't see. So she'll never be able to drive, but she even put a positive, she's like, Mom, it's fine, there's Uber. But I think all of those things are so minor when you look at what could have been. So
What advice do you have for any other parent that's maybe going through a medical hurdle with their own child right now?
rely on God. It's such an out of control feeling when you have to hand your child over to somebody else and they are going to take care of them or take them to surgery or take care of them in the hospital. Just give it to God. Really talk to him in conversation. If you're crying, if just really, really place them in God's hands. And that is the only way that I got through this. There is no other explanation. As a parent, you can't do it by yourself.
And Jordan, what advice do you have to people that are maybe going through something medically that's making something hard?
I'd just say, like, and I know that this is kind of like cliched, but there really is a positive side to everything. Sure, like, nobody wants to have experience with a medical condition, but it could also, you have like experience, you have things that you like learn from, what works, what doesn't for you, and then just think, without like this happening to me, would I be the person that I like now today? Would I still be good at what I am good at right now with this if I didn't have it? So that's what I think of.
Awesome. Well, thank you both of you for sharing your story today. We'll be praying for you, Jordan, as you go off to college. And we thank you for being here.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Part of the Journey. Sarah and Jordan mentioned this idea that God works for the good of those who love him, which comes from Romans chapter 8, verse 28. They certainly have wondered many times, I'm sure, why all these things have been happening to Jordan with these medical challenges. Yet the Moore family has not let that hinder their faith in God and look to him for the miracles that have been occurring in Jordan's life since birth. We may not be facing the same struggles in our lives, but there are certainly times that we wonder why this happens to us. And so we can know with assurance that God does work for the good of those who love him. It may not seem like it in the moment, but in the end, even struggles can turn out for our benefit. Well, that's all for this episode. Be sure to like and subscribe so that you will be notified when our next episode drops.